The wind howled a mournful tune across the barren plains, mirroring the ache in Sarah's heart. Dust devils danced like restless spirits, mocking the parched earth that refused to yield. Her husband, Thomas, had been gone nearly a year, taken by a sudden fever, leaving her with a mountain of debt and a ranch on the brink of ruin. The Double Bar Tea, once a thriving testament to their shared dreams, was now a skeletal reminder of what she'd lost. Sarah, barely 25, possessed a spirit tougher than the gnarled mesquite trees dotting the landscape. She'd learned to mend fences, deliver calves, and haggle with ruthless cattle buyers. But the relentless drought and mounting expenses were slowly chipping away at her resolve. The bank was threatening foreclosure, and the townsfolk whispered about her inevitable failure. Desperate, she stumbled upon an advertisement for a mail-order bride service. The idea felt like a betrayal of Thomas's memory, a surrender to her helplessness. Yet, the thought of losing everything, of seeing their legacy vanish into the dust, propelled her forward. With trembling hands, she penned a letter, painting a picture of a hard-working woman seeking a partner to share the burden of ranch life. Little did she know, this desperate act would not only bring a stranger to her doorstep but also threaten to expose a secret she'd guarded for years. The Double Bar Tea was more than just land. It was a living, breathing entity, its fate intertwined with Sarah's own. The soil was cracked and thirsty, each sunrise revealing the relentless advance of the drought. The cattle, once plump and healthy, were now gaunt shadows, their ribs pressing against their hides. The well, their lifeline, coughed up muddy trickles, barely enough to quench their thirst. Each day was a battle against the elements, a test of Sarah's endurance. She rose before dawn, her hands calloused and worn, to mend fences torn by the wind, to check on the dwindling herd, to pray for rain that never came. She rationed their supplies, patching clothes until they were more thread than fabric, sacrificing her own comfort for the sake of the ranch. But beneath the exhaustion and the worry, a flicker of defiance burned. She was a survivor, forged in the crucible of loss and hardship. She remembered her father's words. "This land will break you if you let it. You have to be tougher than the dirt itself." And she would be. She had to be. The ranch and Thomas's memory depended on it. The advertisement mocked her from the newspaper, a smiling woman in a pristine dress, surrounded by children, promising a life of domestic bliss. Sarah scoffed. Her life was anything but blissful, and a pristine dress was a distant memory. Yet, the underlying promise of partnership, of shared responsibility, gnawed at her. The decision to send that letter felt like carving a piece of herself away. It felt like admitting defeat, like saying she wasn't strong enough to handle it all on her own. Thomas had always been her rock, her confidant. How could she replace him with a stranger? But the bank's final notice lay heavy on her heart. The threat of losing the Double Bar Tea overshadowed every other concern. She pictured the ranch sold off, the land carved into smaller plots, Thomas's memory erased. She couldn't let that happen. So she rationalized. It wasn't about love or romance. It was about survival. A strong back, a willing heart, that's all she needed. Someone to share the load, to help her fight for the land she loved. With a deep breath, she sealed the letter, a silent prayer for forgiveness on her lips. Weeks turned into months, and Sarah had almost given up hope. Then, a letter arrived, postmarked from a town she'd never heard of. The handwriting was neat, the words carefully chosen. It was from Caleb. Caleb described himself as a carpenter, tired of city life and yearning for the quiet solitude of the countryside. He spoke of a desire to build something lasting, to work with his hands and contribute to a community. He didn't mention love or romance, echoing Sarah's own pragmatic approach. But beneath the surface of his words, Sarah sensed a weariness, a hint of something unspoken. He was running from something just as she was running towards something, survival. Perhaps that shared desperation was a foundation they could build on. He included a faded photograph. Caleb was a man of average height, with strong hands and a serious gaze. His eyes, though, held a flicker of something that intrigued her, a quiet strength, a hint of sadness. He wasn't the handsome hero of a dime novel, but he looked reliable. And right now, reliability was all that mattered. He ended his letter with a simple statement, "I'm ready to work." The stagecoach rattled to a halt, spitting dust and gravel. Sarah stood on the porch, her heart pounding a nervous rhythm against her ribs. She smoothed down her worn dress, acutely aware of its faded fabric and mended seams. Caleb stepped down, his movements deliberate and unhurried. He was taller than she'd imagined, his shoulders broad beneath a worn canvas coat. He carried a single, heavy-looking trunk. He removed his hat, revealing a neatly trimmed head of brown hair streaked with gray at the temples. His gaze met hers, and Sarah felt a jolt of something. Not attraction, not exactly. More like recognition, a shared understanding of hardship, perhaps. He offered a polite nod. "Sarah," he said, his voice a low rumble. "Caleb," she replied, her voice barely a whisper. The silence stretched between them, thick with unspoken expectations and uncertainties. The wind picked up, swirling dust around their feet, as if the very land was holding its breath, waiting to see what would happen next. "Welcome to the Double Bar Tea." She gestured towards the house, trying to project an air of confidence she didn't feel. "Not much, but it's home." The first few days were a dance of hesitant steps and averted gazes. Caleb was a man of few words, preferring to observe and learn. He spent hours inspecting the barn, the fences, the well, his brow furrowed in concentration. Sarah, used to barking orders and taking charge, found herself strangely hesitant to direct him. They ate meals in near silence, the only sounds the clinking of silverware and the mournful creak of the old house settling. Sarah tried to make conversation, asking about his journey, his life in the city, but his answers were brief and noncommittal. It was clear he was a private man, guarded and reserved. One evening, as they sat on the porch watching the sunset, Sarah finally broke the silence. "You haven't asked me about Thomas," she said, her voice soft. Caleb turned to her, his eyes filled with a surprising depth of understanding. "I figured you'd tell me when you were ready," he said. "Some things are best left unsaid until the time is right." His words surprised her. Perhaps there was more to Caleb than met the eye. Perhaps, beneath his quiet exterior, lay a well of empathy and patience. But the awkwardness remained, a constant reminder of the unusual circumstances that had brought them together. Caleb's carpentry skills were a revelation. He seemed to have an innate understanding of wood, coaxing life back into the dilapidated barn with practiced hands. He repaired the sagging roof, reinforced the weakened beams, and built new stalls for the cattle. Sarah watched, amazed, as he transformed the decaying structure into something sturdy and functional. He also possessed a knack for fixing things. The broken windmill, silent for months, was soon spinning again, drawing precious water from the depths. The rusted wagon, abandoned in the shed, was restored to its former glory. As they worked side by side, a comfortable rhythm developed between them. Sarah showed him how to manage the cattle, how to read the signs of the changing weather, how to coax life from the stubborn soil. He, in turn, shared his knowledge of carpentry and mechanics, teaching her new skills and offering practical solutions to her problems. Sarah found herself relying on him more and more. His quiet competence was a balm to her weary soul. She began to see him not just as a hired hand, but as a partner, a collaborator, a friend. The ranch, slowly but surely, was starting to breathe again, thanks to their combined efforts. Late at night, long after Caleb had retired to his small room off the kitchen, Sarah would light a single lamp in the study, the room that had once been Thomas's sanctuary. She'd pull out a hidden box from beneath the floorboards, revealing stacks of neatly folded newspapers and a well-worn fountain pen. Under the pseudonym The Prairie Lark, Sarah wrote a weekly column for a regional newspaper, exposing corruption, advocating for the downtrodden, and giving voice to the voiceless. Her sharp wit and insightful commentary had earned her a devoted following, but her anonymity was crucial. Exposing the powerful men who controlled the region could have dangerous consequences. The stories she told were often inspired by the struggles of her neighbors, the injustices she witnessed firsthand. She wrote about the unfair railroad rates that crippled local farmers, the corrupt politicians lining their pockets at the expense of the poor, the hidden acts of kindness that kept the community afloat. She paused, a knot forming in her stomach. Her latest article, about a land grab scheme orchestrated by a wealthy cattle baron, was particularly incendiary. If her identity were revealed, the consequences could be devastating, not just for her, but for the ranch, for Caleb, for everyone she cared about. The secret she guarded so fiercely was a double-edged sword, a source of power and a constant threat. The drought deepened its grip on the land. The already meager well began to run dry, leaving the cattle desperate for water. Dust devils swirled with increasing ferocity, carrying away precious topsoil. The double bar T was slowly turning into a barren wasteland. Then came the sickness. One by one, the cattle began to weaken, their eyes glazed over, their bodies racked with fever. Sarah recognized the symptoms, a deadly strain of pneumonia that had decimated herds in neighboring counties. Despair threatened to overwhelm her. The bank was already breathing down her neck, and now this. If she lost the cattle, she lost everything. The ranch, her livelihood, Thomas's legacy, all would be swallowed by the dust. She and Caleb worked tirelessly, nursing the sick animals, isolating the infected ones, praying for a miracle. But the sickness spread relentlessly, claiming more victims each day. The air was thick with the stench of death and the sound of Sarah's desperate sobs. The double bar T was on the brink of collapse, and Sarah felt utterly powerless to stop it. The weight of her secret, and the potential consequences of her actions as the prairie lark, only added to her burden. Sarah collapsed onto the porch, her body trembling with exhaustion and grief. She couldn't do it anymore. She was ready to surrender. Caleb knelt beside her, his strong hand gently covering hers. "We're not done yet," he said, his voice firm but gentle. "We'll fight this together." He didn't offer empty platitudes or false hope. He simply offered his unwavering support, his willingness to share the burden. He took over the care of the cattle, working day and night, administering medicine, tending to the sick, burying the dead. He researched alternative water sources, devising a plan to divert a nearby creek to a temporary watering hole. Sarah watched him, amazed by his resilience, his unwavering commitment. He had no obligation to stay, no reason to fight for a ranch that wasn't his. But he did. He stood by her side, shoulder to shoulder, facing the crisis with quiet determination. And in that moment, Sarah realized she wasn't alone anymore. She had a partner, a true ally, someone who believed in her, even when she had lost faith in herself. She rose to her feet, her weariness momentarily forgotten. "What can I do?" she asked, her voice filled with newfound resolve. The fight wasn't over. Not yet. Sarah remembered a conversation she'd overheard at the general store, a hushed discussion about a traveling veterinarian who possessed a rare vaccine for the pneumonia plaguing the cattle. The man was rumored to be secretive, distrustful of outsiders, and impossible to find. But as the prairie lark, Sarah had cultivated a network of informants, individuals who trusted her to protect their identities and amplify their voices. She knew people who knew people. Perhaps, just perhaps, she could use her connections to locate this elusive veterinarian. However, contacting her informants would mean risking exposure. The cattle baron she'd written about, a man named Silas Blackwood, had spies everywhere. If he discovered her secret identity, he wouldn't hesitate to retaliate, not only against her but against Caleb, against the ranch. Yet, the thought of losing the cattle, of watching the double bar T crumble into dust, spurred her into action. She couldn't stand idly by while her livelihood, her legacy, slipped away. She would take the risk. She would use her secret life to save the ranch, even if it meant jeopardizing everything. The question was, could she do it without revealing her true identity? And could she trust Caleb to understand, if she did? A coded message arrived via a young boy who worked at the telegraph office, a message only the prairie lark would understand. It revealed the veterinarian's location, a remote trading post a day's ride away, but also a warning. Silas Blackwood knew someone was looking for him and had dispatched men to intercept. Sarah knew she had to act fast, but going to the trading post herself was too risky. Blackwood's men would recognize her. She needed someone she could trust, someone who wouldn't arouse suspicion. Her gaze fell on Caleb. But telling Caleb meant revealing her secret. It meant exposing him to danger, potentially ruining the life he was trying to build. She could send him without explanation, asking him to deliver a package, but that felt dishonest, manipulative. She paced the floor, torn between her desire to save the cattle and her need to protect Caleb. Could she trust him with the truth? Could she risk his safety for the sake of the ranch? The weight of the decision pressed down on her, heavier than any burden she had ever carried. The sun began to rise, casting long shadows across the room, a stark reminder that time was running out. She had to choose. Now, before Sarah could make a decision, fate intervened. Caleb, searching for a lost tool in the barn, stumbled upon the hidden box beneath the floorboards. He didn't open it, but he saw the corner of a newspaper sticking out, a familiar headline catching his eye. Blackwood's land grab exposed. It was an article written by the Prairie Lark. He recognized the name. The whole territory was buzzing about the Prairie Lark, a fearless writer who dared to challenge the powerful. But what was this newspaper doing hidden in Sarah's barn? He pieced together the clues: Sarah's late-night writing sessions, her knowledge of local affairs, her network of contacts. A chilling realization dawned on him. Could Sarah be the Prairie Lark? Doubt gnawed at him. He had come to trust her, to admire her strength and resilience. But if she was hiding something so significant, what else was she concealing? Was their relationship built on a foundation of lies? Was she using him? He confronted her that evening, holding the newspaper clipping in his hand. "Sarah," he said, his voice tight with suspicion. "What is this? What have you been hiding from me?" The trust that had been slowly building between them shattered like glass. The air crackled with tension, the unspoken question hanging heavy in the air. Who was Sarah? Really? Sarah stared at Caleb, her heart pounding in her chest. How could she explain? How could she make him understand? The truth was a tangled web of grief, anger, and a burning desire for justice. She closed her eyes, and the memories flooded back. Her father, a respected rancher, had been cheated out of his land by Silas Blackwood, driven to despair and an early grave. The local authorities, bought and paid for by Blackwood, had turned a blind eye. Fueled by righteous anger, Sarah had vowed to avenge her father's death and expose Blackwood's corruption. She started small, gathering evidence, talking to victims, writing anonymous letters to the editor. Over time, her skills sharpened, her network grew, and the Prairie Lark was born. She knew the risks, but she couldn't stand idly by while Blackwood and his cronies preyed on the innocent. It was a dangerous game, but one she felt compelled to play, a way to honor her father's memory and fight for what was right. She had kept her secret even from Thomas, fearing for his safety. Now, facing Caleb's accusing gaze, she knew she could no longer hide. The truth, however painful, had to be told. "It's true," Sarah confessed, her voice barely a whisper. "I am the Prairie Lark." Caleb's face hardened. "Why didn't you tell me?" he demanded. "Did you think I wouldn't understand? Or did you just not trust me?" "It wasn't that," Sarah pleaded, tears welling in her eyes. "I was afraid. Afraid of putting you in danger. Afraid of losing you, just like I lost Thomas." "So, you decided to lie?" Caleb retorted, his voice laced with hurt. "To build a relationship on secrets and deceit." "I didn't want to lie," Sarah cried. "But I had to protect the ranch, to protect my father's memory. Blackwood is a dangerous man, Caleb. He would stop at nothing to silence me." Caleb turned away, his shoulders slumped with disappointment. "I came here looking for a fresh start, a life of honesty and simplicity," he said, his voice thick with emotion. "But it seems I've stumbled into a nest of vipers." Sarah stepped closer, her hand reaching out to touch his arm. "Please, Caleb, don't leave," she begged. "I need you, more than you know." She poured out her heart, revealing her fears, her vulnerabilities, her unwavering commitment to justice. The dam finally broke, and the truth flowed freely between them, raw and unfiltered. The future of their relationship and the fate of the ranch hung precariously in the balance. After a long night of soul-searching, Caleb emerged from his room, his face etched with determination. "I'm staying," he announced, his gaze meeting Sarah's with newfound resolve. "But we do this together. No more secrets." Sarah's heart soared with relief. She explained the situation, the coded message, the veterinarian, Blackwood's men. Caleb listened intently, his mind already working, formulating a plan. Using Sarah's knowledge of the backroads and Caleb's carpentry skills, they devised a way to outsmart Blackwood's men. Caleb built a hidden compartment into the wagon, a safe place to conceal the veterinarian if necessary. Sarah used her contacts to spread misinformation, creating a diversion to draw Blackwood's men away from the trading post. Together, they rode to the trading post, Caleb posing as a simple carpenter, Sarah disguised as a ranch hand. They found the veterinarian, convinced him of their good intentions, and secured the vaccine. The journey back was fraught with danger, but with their combined skills and unwavering trust in each other, they managed to evade Blackwood's men and return to the double bar T with the precious vaccine. Slowly, painstakingly, they began to save the cattle. The ranch had a chance because of their combined efforts. Blackwood, enraged by their success in securing the vaccine, retaliated swiftly. He used his influence to pressure the bank, demanding immediate repayment of the loan. Sarah and Caleb were given 30 days to come up with the full amount, an impossible task. But Blackwood wasn't finished. He also targeted Sarah's informants, threatening them, intimidating them, cutting off their livelihoods. Many, fearing for their safety, recanted their statements, leaving Sarah's previous exposés weakened and discredited. Sarah felt the weight of her actions crushing her. Her desire for justice had inadvertently put innocent people in harm's way. She had to make amends. She decided to use her platform as the Prairie Lark one last time, not to attack Blackwood directly, but to appeal to the community, to remind them of their shared values, to encourage them to stand together against oppression. She wrote a powerful editorial, acknowledging the risks, expressing her remorse for any harm she had caused, and reaffirming her commitment to fighting for justice, no matter the cost. It was her most vulnerable and honest piece yet. The response was immediate and overwhelming. Caleb had initially recoiled at Sarah's confession, hurt by her deception and fearful of the danger she had brought upon them. But as he watched her pour her heart out in that final editorial, he began to understand. He saw the raw courage beneath her vulnerability, the unwavering commitment to justice that drove her actions. He remembered his own reasons for leaving the city, the corruption he had witnessed, the injustices he had been powerless to stop. He too yearned for a better world, a place where honesty and integrity mattered. He found Sarah in the study, staring out the window, her face etched with worry. He walked over and gently placed a hand on her shoulder. "That was a powerful piece, Sarah," he said, his voice filled with admiration. "You spoke the truth. But what if it's not enough?" she whispered, her voice trembling. "What if Blackwood wins?" Caleb squeezed her shoulder reassuringly. "Then we'll fight him together," he said. "We'll stand by you, just like you stood by your father. You're not alone in this, Sarah. Not anymore." He had come to the Double Bar T seeking a quiet life, but he had found something far more valuable. A purpose, a cause, and a woman worth fighting for. The days that followed were a whirlwind of activity. The community, inspired by Sarah's words, rallied to her defense. Farmers offered supplies, ranchers pledged support, and ordinary citizens organized protests against Blackwood's tactics. One evening, after a long day of tending to the cattle and organizing the community's efforts, Sarah and Caleb sat on the porch, exhausted but hopeful. The setting sun painted the sky in hues of orange and purple, a breathtaking display of nature's beauty. "I never thought I could trust anyone again," Sarah said softly, her gaze fixed on the horizon. "After Thomas, I closed myself off, afraid of getting hurt. Caleb reached for her hand, his touch gentle and reassuring. "I know what it's like to be afraid," he said. "But you don't have to be anymore." Their eyes met, and in that moment, Sarah saw not just a partner, not just a friend, but a man who truly understood her, a man who loved her for who she was, flaws and all. She leaned in and kissed him, a kiss that spoke volumes, a kiss that sealed their bond, a kiss that promised a future filled with love, trust, and unwavering support. The mail-order husband had become something far more precious. A soulmate. Just when it seemed they might actually succeed in saving the ranch, a new threat emerged, this time from Caleb's past. A letter arrived, bearing a city postmark and addressed in a handwriting Caleb clearly recognized. He paled as he read it, his face clouding with a mixture of fear and regret. "What is it?" Sarah asked, her voice filled with concern. Caleb hesitated, his gaze darting nervously around the room. "It's complicated," he said finally. "It's someone from my past, someone I thought I had left behind." He explained that he had been involved in a business deal that had gone sour, a deal that had left him owing a considerable sum of money to some very dangerous people. He had fled the city to escape them, hoping to disappear and start a new life. But now they had found him. The letter demanded immediate payment, threatening to expose his past and destroy everything he had worked for, including his relationship with Sarah. If he didn't comply, they would come to the Double Bar Tea and take what they were owed, by any means necessary. The peaceful life he and Sarah had begun to build was about to be shattered. Caleb felt his past closing in, threatening to destroy everything he had found at the Double Bar Tea. He was ready to run again, to protect Sarah from the danger he carried with him. But Sarah wouldn't let him. "We're in this together," she said, her voice firm and unwavering. "We'll find a way to face this, just like we faced everything else." Using her connections as the Prairie Lark, Sarah discovered that the men seeking Caleb were not just creditors but ruthless criminals wanted for numerous offenses. She contacted the authorities, providing them with information that led to their arrest. Meanwhile, Caleb used his carpentry skills to reinforce the ranch house, turning it into a fortress. He and Sarah prepared for a showdown, determined to defend their home and their future. When the criminals arrived, they were met with a united front. Sarah, with her knowledge of the land and her sharp wit, and Caleb, with his strength and his carpentry skills, fought side by side, protecting each other and their home. In the end, they prevailed, proving that their love and their commitment to each other were stronger than any threat from the past. The Double Bar Tea was safe, and their future was secure. With Blackwood's influence weakened and the criminals from Caleb's past behind bars, a sense of peace finally settled over the Double Bar Tea. But the biggest surprise was yet to come. The publicity surrounding Sarah's fight against Blackwood, and her courageous stance as the Prairie Lark, had attracted the attention of a wealthy philanthropist from the East Coast. Touched by her story and impressed by her commitment to justice, the philanthropist decided to invest in the Double Bar Tea, providing Sarah with the funds she needed to modernize the ranch, implement sustainable farming practices, and expand her cattle herd. The philanthropist explained that she had been a longtime reader of the Prairie Lark and had always admired Sarah's courage and integrity. She believed that Sarah's voice was needed now more than ever, and that the Double Bar Tea could serve as a beacon of hope for the entire territory. Sarah's secret life, the very thing that had threatened to destroy her, had ultimately saved her. Her voice, her courage, her unwavering commitment to justice had not only exposed corruption and inspired a community, but had also attracted the attention of someone who believed in her vision and was willing to invest in her future. The Double Bar Tea was not just surviving, it was thriving. Standing on the porch of the Double Bar Tea, Sarah and Caleb gazed out at the sprawling landscape. The ranch, once parched and barren, was now a vibrant tapestry of green, thanks to the new irrigation systems and sustainable farming practices. The cattle grazed peacefully in the pastures, their coats gleaming in the afternoon sun. "It's beautiful, isn't it?" Sarah said, her voice filled with awe. Caleb wrapped his arm around her, pulling her close. "We did this," he said, his voice filled with pride. "Together." The sun dipped below the horizon, painting the sky in fiery hues of orange and red. The air was filled with the sweet scent of wildflowers and the gentle hum of crickets. The Double Bar Tea was more than just a ranch. It was a symbol of their love, their resilience, their unwavering commitment to each other. Sarah leaned her head against Caleb's shoulder, her heart overflowing with gratitude. She had come to the Double Bar Tea a broken woman, burdened by grief and haunted by secrets. But she was now whole, thanks to the love and support of a mail-order husband who had become her soulmate. The future stretched before them, filled with endless possibilities, a shared journey of love, laughter, and unwavering commitment. They were ready to face whatever challenges lay ahead. Together, their journey had been fraught with challenges: drought, disease, betrayal, and danger. But through it all, they had persevered, their spirits unbroken, their love unyielding. The story of Sarah and Caleb was a testament to the power of resilience, the ability to bounce back from adversity, to find strength in the face of despair. It was a story about trust, the courage to open your heart to another person, to share your vulnerabilities, to believe in the possibility of love, even when it seems impossible. And it was a story about the transformative power of love, the ability to heal old wounds, to bridge divides, to inspire acts of courage and kindness. It was love that had brought Sarah and Caleb together, love that had sustained them through their darkest hours, and love that had ultimately saved them. Their unconventional beginning, born out of desperation and a mail-order advertisement, had blossomed into something beautiful and enduring, a testament to the extraordinary power of the human heart to find love in the most unexpected circumstances. The Double Bar Tea stood as a symbol of that power. As the Double Bar Tea flourished, Sarah found herself drawn to new challenges. The territory was still plagued by corruption, and she knew that her voice as the prairie lark was needed more than ever. With Caleb by her side, she began to investigate new cases of injustice, exposing corrupt officials, advocating for the rights of the downtrodden, and giving voice to the voiceless. Their work took them to remote corners of the territory, where they encountered new dangers and new opportunities to make a difference. They also began to dream of expanding the Double Bar Tea, of building a school for local children, of creating a community center where people could gather and share their stories. They knew that the road ahead would not be easy, that they would face new obstacles and new challenges. But they were confident that, together, they could overcome anything. Their love had been forged in the fires of adversity, and it was strong enough to withstand whatever the future held. The prairie stretched before them, vast and limitless, a promise of adventure and endless possibilities. Their journey was just beginning. The story of Sarah and Caleb is a reminder that happiness can be found in the most unexpected places, and that even the most unconventional beginnings can lead to lasting fulfillment. Their journey began with loss, desperation, and a mail-order advertisement. It was a path paved with secrets, danger, and uncertainty. But through it all, they discovered the power of resilience, the importance of trust, and the transformative magic of love. They learned that true strength lies not in hiding from your vulnerabilities, but in embracing them, in sharing them with someone who loves you for who you are, flaws and all. Their story is a testament to the enduring human spirit, the ability to overcome adversity, to find hope in the darkest of times, and to build a life filled with purpose, meaning, and unwavering love. It proves that even when life takes an unexpected turn, even when the road ahead seems impossible, lasting happiness and fulfillment are always within reach, waiting to be discovered, one courageous step at a time. It all started with a mail-order husband, and it blossomed into a love story for the ages.